Hey, thanks for joining as well. Tell us a bit about yourself. Let us get introduced to you on the Beyond the Cage podcast.
No worries. Thank you for having me. It's
My
just
pleasure.
amazing setup. So I started training actually during COVID or just before COVID. Senior year of high school, I used to obviously get into a lot of trouble and fights
Yeah.
on the streets and stuff. So my mom, she actually put me in my first Muay Thai class, I believe in 2020. And it was really good. Like it really humbled me, like from getting into trouble a lot to being more disciplined in the gym, learning real technique. That's kind of how it started.
Yeah.
And my love for it fell from there. But now as you grow older, we graduate from school, we start working full time, things get in the way. But
Yeah.
it was definitely a good foundation for me growing up.
That's good. So, like, what would you say was like the first thing that made you like fall in love with MMA or combat sports in general?
Well, my family, my dad, my uncle, they loved watching UFC as a kid. And I remember like always trying to sneak in their room, like, oh, I want to see too. I want to see. But they, I was too young at the time. They didn't want me to like be in that environment with the older guys and stuff. So I always knew I loved UFC, like watching Khabib growing up and all these amazing fighters. So, yeah.
So, what was like? Did you feel like there was any, any like psychological stuff that went into it? Like, any of like, did you see any of the mental aspects before really getting into the sport?
Yeah, I got bullied a lot, honestly, since grade 9. That's kind of where it started off. A lot of the older kids didn't like me, and I had to move schools from one school to another because the problems were just too much, like going to like taking different routes to my class to avoid like, the older, bigger guys and
No
stuff.
way.
Like, and then it kind of moved over to the high school, like the other high school that I moved to too. So it was just kind of bad, like, just troubled kids in the neighborhood that really looking for trouble all the time. I'd run into them. It would always be a scrap, like always getting into some sort of scrap. And it was just too much. Like I actually sat down with them one day and I was just like, we ran into each other at a convenience store and they obviously like, wanted to fight. And, how it starts,
Yeah, with-
pushing and
with
like
guys
shoving,
especially.
looking at you and like whatever. And like, I just actually sat down with these guys. I was like, yo, like when we grow up, when we grow older, like, are we just going to keep fighting in the streets every time we see each other? Like we live in the same neighborhood. We're going to run into each other. How many times is this going to, like, how long is this going to go for until we like say it's done?
Yeah.
Like at this point, we don't even know what we're fighting about. We're just fighting because we just hate each other. So
I feel like that comes with a lot of like adolescence and stuff. When as guys, especially when we're younger, like we have a lot of pent up anger and like other emotions which we just confuse to be as anger. We just start falling into those emotions as well. So,
Yeah.
what would you when you first started training? What would you describe how it first started? Like your first day in the gym, the first barriers you had to kind of break through when you first started training. What was that like for you?
So like this kind of ties back into that story earlier. So that day, actually, when I had that talk with them, they said, yeah, it's done, squashed. And then as I was going home on my bike, like I stopped there's like a car stopped at a stop sign and like 6 guys jumped out and like chased me with like weapons. I had to leave my bike. They stole my bike. And that's when I was like, yo, this is done. Like, this is it. I didn't get my bike back. And that's when I joined the gym and I told my crew everything that I was going through. And she's like, I'm here to protect you and like, we're going to build you up. And since then, like I felt a lot more confident in myself, stopped getting into these fights and all this trouble. And I knew I had technique. So that kind of gave me that confidence to know that, in the future, like, I feel like every man should know how to fight. I feel like it's the foundation of a manlyhood. I feel like, it's in our DNA to be strong men. Like, we just going back to like the times when we had to,
Yeah,
but
fair enough.
it's a great skill to have. And a lot of successful people, I think
Yeah.
they've definitely been, in some sort of fighting.
For sure, and we've seen a lot of stories on that too. So, when you first started going to the gym, you said like they took you in and they said that like, they would protect you. What was the main thing that gave you like that sense of belonging?
Honestly, the atmosphere and the people there, like, doesn't matter like how old you were. I was the youngest kid in the gym, sparring with 30-year-old guys that are like 5 times my size, but like they treat you like family in a way that like they'll obviously they'll hurt you. It's part of the sport, but you learn from it, and you humble yourself a lot. Like when they push you past certain limits that like you didn't know your mind can go to, you go into a place and into a different state, and from there you psychologically like have that comfort because you know that you can push your mind past certain points, because your mind will always give up before your body. And I believe you can put that into so many different aspects in your life.
Yeah, that's true. And was there like a specific, emotional moment you had in your life which, training in combat sports help overcome? Like, was there kind of like a pivotal moment that really, when you started training MMA, just like, okay, it helped you deal with that issue?
So at the time I was training, and this was all going on during COVID too, I actually lost my grandfather, and a month later I lost my uncle. And that same uncle is the one who was like a huge UFC fan, and he loved MMA, and like that being in the gym just allowed me to like zone out and kind of do it for them, make them proud. And it was just a weird time, like losing 2 family members within 1 month. It was like my gateway kind of thing to just kind of forget about everything in the world and be present in the moment.
Yeah. No, I'm really sorry to hear that. I'm sure that must have been really tough on you. And how old were you when that happened?
I was 21. Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably had a bunch of like, confusion and like a bunch of emotions you didn't know what to do with.
Yeah, I feel like I had to grow up a lot in that year because, you don't expect people in your life to like leave you ever. But now I've come to understand that like, this is all temporary. We're all going to die one day. So you grow a lot from it. And that did help me a lot. Like being in combat sports helped me a lot to battle with those certain things during that time.
And, I want to talk a bit more about faith and religion. So was there any, connection you were able to make with, your faith and practices and beliefs at home with your training and lifestyle with the gym? Were you able to bridge the two, or did one help the other in any ways?
Oh, 100%. Like we can see today, a lot of the pro or the best fighters in the world, they follow Islam, like they're Muslim. And I looked up to that a lot, and like that really like gave me that sense of like, not sort of like power, but like, it made you feel like
some sort of belonging,
embraced. You're embracing it, like, because, like we have Muhammad Ali, he's the greatest of all time. We have Khabib. We have so many great fighters, like Rod Tang, for example. So it makes you feel very proud to be in the faith that you're in, being a Muslim, and like just the whole discipline aspect of the sport. It really conveys back to Islam and how it teaches you to be disciplined as well.
Yeah, for sure. And so now, how old are you now?
23.
So now, Ashraf, at 23, you have a daily life. You're working, you're balancing family and all these things. When you're training in MMA, how do you create that balance? Because you're working full time now, and that's like it's a big transition from when you graduate, college, and then going to working. So how are you able to balance that?
Honestly, it's not easy. Obviously, after school, you pick up a job full time. You're working Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. Like, it's hard to get into the gym, especially when your work is 40 minutes away from your house. So the techniques that I've learned, the foundation that I've learned in the gym for the time period that I went, I can still apply it and build on it, because honestly, like, you don't need the best training facility to become the best fighter. And we see that in UFC. A lot of these guys, they come from nothing. So you can take what you've learned and almost like, you can train anywhere, really, to be honest. You can shadow box, you can hit the bag at the local gym. Like, so that's what I've really been doing to keep active. A lot of, shadow boxing at home and like practicing kicks, or, going to the gym, hitting the bag, just so you know that you always have that in your back pocket. It's something you don't want to lose too.
Yeah, like a secret weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair. And so if you could take away one thing from MMA and combat sports in general that you could apply on your daily life for the rest of your life, what would that be for Ashraf?
It would definitely be, honestly, one thing that I believe in, and is this world out here, like, really nobody is here to help you. Like, as much as we want to believe that, you know, people are here to help you, it's kind of messed up to think like that, but at the same time, it's very protective to think like that, because there's a lot of people who will like take advantage of you, or, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, everybody's in it for themselves. And I say, like, all the time, you know, you eat or you be eaten. Like, just like in combat sports, like, if you train hard, you will win. Like, 1 + 1 = 2. If you train hard, you're going to win. If you put your head down into something in life and you hone that, you're consistent with it, and you do it every single day, you're going to succeed. Like, because there's no other option.
Right.
And that's how I can apply that to my life.
Honestly, that's really inspiring. You know, it's a simple concept, but it's really fundamental, you know, when you grasp your head around that. And so when what would you really say is like something that really defines you with MMA? Like, what has MMA brought to your life specifically?
Honestly, a lot. It brings my friends together, you know, when we watch UFC, and it's just times where you get to kind of be with, now that's how it is for me anyways, being with my friends, spending time, because life catches up so fast. Like, weeks go by like days, and sometimes you forget to really appreciate the people around you. And, you know, when my friends come over to watch UFC, we have a good time, we enjoy each other's times, we catch up. It's a great thing. I know it's just watching the sport, but you know, we're always a big fan of the UFC and watching the great fighters. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely something I want to keep doing.
That's what made me and you friends too. You know, when we started, I came here, you know, straight from Abu Dhabi, no family, no nothing, and you know, we were just in the same class. You know, you're studying public relations, I'm doing digital communications. There's no really conversation of combat sports over there, but we were able to bond off of that. And you know, you brought me to your house, to your family, and we just bonded off of like mainly two things: UFC and eating some good food. And you know, with the sport which people see with so much violence and so much gruesomeness, like it's very important to understand, like, there is a culture, there is a community behind these combat sports, whether it's like a big enterprise like UFC or like amateur tournaments or things like that. You know, I feel like the sport really, really brings people together, and whether you compete in or whether you watch it on TV. And you know, some of the, you know, my fondest memories of moving here to study and, you know, have that student lifestyle was bonding with people like you over, you know, a sport I love so much.
No, 100%. I mean, people may perceive UFC and MMA as gruesome and like crazy and like these guys just wanting to kill each other, but honestly, the best fighters that I've ever met are always the nicest, most humble people ever.
Yeah.
Like, super, super nice, down to earth people.
Yeah. That's true.
I think the people that portray themselves as like these big, angry, crazy, muscly guy, and like, they're usually not what they say.
Yeah, and they don't really know the sport for what it's really like.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, I thank you for your time, Ashraf. You know, it's been a really good conversation, and hopefully more people will understand really how, you know, the sport can bring people together. You know, whether you train as a pro, whether you train as an amateur, whether it's just like a hobby on the thing. So I'm glad to hear your insights, and I'm sure a lot of people at home are gonna find that interesting.
No, thank you so much, Ali, for having me again. This is a great setup. I can't wait to see more of this.
Of course. Thank you for being on the Beyond the Cage.
Thank you.